You want to start?
Yeah, were we waiting for somebody else?
Cheryl's last name is Critch.
Okay.
And no, we're not waiting for anybody else.
Okay. And then just if you want to ask her what her address is, I think we should probably just know whether we're dealing with people outside of the town or not, just as a, sort of bureaucratic, just a bureaucratic reason. We can start without doing that.
Do we want to take care of the two small things first, and then they can go, and we may be spending a little bit of extra time on the other stuff?
Yeah, whatever.
But see, we're doing time though, so I don't know. Can we do other business at the beginning instead of the end?
I don't know. Can we, Lisa? Do we have to follow the time?
We do. We have to follow the time. So we have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we do need to set up a meeting date. So if we could do that.
Okay.
And let's set up another meeting date, and I will add to that meeting the email that you sent Bill yesterday regarding the committee.
Yep.
We'll add them to that agenda.
So does the 28th work? That'll be 2 weeks today.
And I think that's when they were available too, was the 28th.
28th is fine.
Yeah, John?
Yeah.
I think that since we are talking just for a second about we're on the time slot for CJC, I wanted to bring up, I guess, a question that came from the applicant's attorneys about the privilege and connection fee and definition thereof. And I think it's probably good that the board talks about this for a second. And I'll start by saying, I've been doing this for almost 9 years, and I'm going to defer to Wayne and John as they know a lot more about this. But my recollection of the definition of the privilege and/or the connection fee, where they were basically one and the same, and I may be right or wrong, but it was more of a matter of semantics as what it was. It was basically a privilege to connect to the town sewer, and these are the charges there for that. So I'll let you guys, add more to that, because I'm still a babe in the woods as far as time on the board. But whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think there should be some justification for an amount and where it actually is being used and how it's being used, and to whose benefit it is, whether it's the towns or all of the ratepayers or things like that. And it has to be tied to inflation over the since 1972 or so, when we really started having sewer in town and having other people besides the school connect. So I think that's important. I think also there should be a discussion about how we universally come up with the number of EDUs in relationship to what we've done in the past. Because I think it's been, I guess, easy for us if we have a restaurant and there are, 50 seats, it's going to be so much per seats. Or if it's a house, we change the fact that you can't have a 10-bedroom house because DEP would say 10 bedrooms, it would be times 110, 150 gallons per bedroom. And we've traditionally let that go as a single EDU in the past. Now we've decided, now we've brought that up to a fair standard. So I think looking at this overall is worth doing. I'm not sure whether the number changes at all, but I think it's worth, having a discussion.
Well, just to review a little bit of the past, many years ago, we had a very convoluted and not what I would have thought at the time was a fair and equitable assignment of what essentially is a mechanism to recover capital investment. And it's evolved over the last 20 years since I've had anything to do with the sewer, to what I think is a very fair system now. What fundamentally it is a mechanism for charging people who are essentially Johnny-come-latelys to participate in the systems that others have essentially provided at least the startup capital for. In other words, it's a buy-in to our capital system. And we evaluate that buy-in of late in the last at least couple of changes to our connection fee or connection privilege fee, predicating it on the capital costs associated with the most recent significant expansion, which was Little Harbor Atlantic Avenue. And we have taken the betterment costs, which included all of the capital costs expended by the town sewer commission to do that latest expansion. And we've simply escalated that average betterment cost per EDU up to the current value predicated on publicly published escalation rates in the cost of construction, in essence. So it's fair. Excuse me. It's fair, it's equitable, and it's predicated on anticipated design EDU costs. And it therefore requires somebody new signing on and being granted access to the capital system that had been paid for by others or was being paid for by others, so that they are on an equal footing with everyone else. It's the, I think the bone of contention when it comes to CJC is that they think that cost is too high. It is what it is, and it's fair and equitable. Dan has, I think, been taking a look one more time at how we calculated it to perhaps recognize that we may have included non-sewer water consumption, i.e. irrigation, et cetera. Do you have anything new on that, Dan?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did use. Hold on.
I can't hear you.
I did utilize the Boston rainfall data, and unfortunately, the numbers that I have for the flow at the or the consumption at the facility doesn't correlate very well with the rainfall. You would think that a very dry summer would result in increased irrigation or increased water use, and a very wet summer would do the opposite. And unfortunately, what I'm finding is the numbers don't correlate that way. They actually correlate in reverse. So it's data. So
Is
I
there
mean,
any way to make a realistic estimate of what that might be?
yeah, I mean, I've looked at some of the averages. I think that what I want to do is go back into our DMRs and look at some of the local rainfall data. And that might provide a little bit better correlation than the Boston data. So I'm still going to look at that one more time and see if we can look at some average numbers. But like I said, there are still some of those items which are outside the range. You know, obviously, one of the instances, the highest consumption ever used was basically during the wettest season. So I'd have to throw out a couple of these outliers and look at the other data.
So it's not a very straightforward process, but it's one that I think the commission needs to think about in all fairness to the potential applicant. I guess they're not an applicant yet because they haven't applied for connection yet. But I think in all fairness, we should find a way to appropriately consider that aspect when we determine what the design EDUs should be for that particular property and the anticipated uses of it. But that's headed only in the direction of fairness and an equitable resolution.
Yeah, I agree in principle to that. I think that, you know, obviously they're, as you said, John, they're trying to figure out a method to lower the cost of connection. You know, at some point in time, we're going to have to say, okay, we're done. You know, I mean, we can't keep looking at, we can't keep looking up for rocks that are going to produce a lower cost for them. But, you know, if there's something legitimate that is available to other ratepayers or people who want to connect to the town, I would be for it. But again, I want to treat this group just as we would treat anyone else who comes before the board looking to connect to our sewer system.
I think we're all in total agreement with that sentiment.
One thing I should mention too on the fees, I mean, it's not an arbitrary fee, obviously. It's based upon the actual construction costs of the last project and the costs that were, you know, assigned by betterments to the individual users. So it does have a solid base on which the numbers were founded.
Yep.
And then that was extrapolated up, as John had mentioned. But that cost did not include any work for single services or private properties or extensions to service those private properties. That was all at the homeowner's cost. And those costs were not included in the value that you now assign.
I think, though, that a certain portion of this, and it's just being realistic, should go to, you know, part of the piping offsite. In other words, going down the street, perhaps a portion of this should be allocated to that because it is allocated in Jerusalem Road, Norfolk Avenue, and that type of thing, but not anything on the private property or not anything on the pumps or any of that other stuff to get to the sewer. So that if we looked at it like a regular residential thing, yes, they're responsible for everything on their property, the construction of everything else, but going down the street, they are paying you know, for a portion of that. So I don't know, you know, because I don't want to get into a contest later on. Someone wants to tie into a pipe that was going to that place. There should be, you know, an amount of cost to, you know, to sort of get it there that will be borne by the applicant. But I think it's you know, just to me, it seems like, you know, it seems like a lot of money, and I know, you know, it's the way it is, but, you know, I just like to see some sort of relief.
Wayne, I'm not sure I followed your argument. Are you saying that your position is that some of the cost of the pipe from CJC properties to the pump station should be deducted from our proposed connection privilege fee?
Well, in comparison to the Little Harbor District, where the residents, those users themselves, paid the total cost of the construction plus the cost of going onto their own properties to connect, it seems as though he could have a certain case that says some of my application money my money should be going to the infrastructure that is taking my sewage to the plant and, you know, and doing it. Now, we've always said that if someone wants to get on after it's done and bring it down the street, like Black Horse Lane, it is at their expense. So I'm in the conflict of that's what we've said, but on the other hand, when we're discussing where did the $37,500 per EDU come from, that a portion of that $37,000 for everybody else was going into a certain amount of the infrastructure. That's, I mean, that's just my single opinion. And I don't, and, you know, I've been on, you know, listening more and listening more. But as I see the numbers accumulate and see that it's almost impossible for him to justify this, and I don't want to, you know, I don't know. We've never come up with what his alternative is if he doesn't tie into sewer. So he's never, except for the applicant or the proposed applicant, to give input. It is really, you know, no plans yet to show what how he's doing something or what his alternative is. Does he have no alternative?
Well, I understand what you said. And another way of looking at it, which I think we've stated before, is the only reason that pipe is being constructed from the CJC properties to the pump station so that they can take advantage of our sewer system is for his private property. The cost of doing so, we have maintained, I think up to this point anyway, should be borne by the single and sole user of that pipe. We have said that should someone, in accordance with state law and their right, once such a system was operable, if it ever is, and if we have the capacity to treat whatever they want to put into it, and it meets all our other requirements, that they have the right to hook into that then public section of pipe. So, and that we would be willing to share whatever connection fees were involved with the CJC owner.
Okay.
What you're suggesting is that is still maybe too onerous a burden on the owner to have to pay the connection privilege fee in addition to all the construction costs for the pipe. I understand your point.
Yeah, and if I Wayne, can I just add one thing? I'll echo John's position, as I have thought on actually giving, if somebody along that pipe connects to it in the future, then, you know, there should be some credit given to the, you know, CJC project because they put it in. I don't know what it is yet, but I would be open fully to that. But echoing John's, you know, this isn't something that we've been looking for, as there have been multiple folks asking to have a private pipe down 3A. I mean, he's the only one who wants it, and I know at least once, if not twice, he said that he was going to pay for it. And one of them one of those times were recorded in our meeting minutes. And yes, it's probably gone up in cost, and maybe you know, because of what he's doing. I don't know the construction thing, but you know, because he wants this, you know, this is on him.
Okay. In our agreement that we prepared, did we put in language to that effect, or can we, as a result of today's meeting, have some more definitive language as to when this pipe is installed, that it is going to be owned by the town of Cohasset, right? And that in this particular section of pipe, if we collect additional revenue in that cost, which is really tricky because the 37,000 is providing recovery of our whole system, not just that one pipe. But
Sure.
You know, so we're getting in a thing. But so he should perhaps we could negotiate to get a portion of it, like we said, like 50% up to, you know, the total cost of the thing or whatever, and the town gets 50% or whatever, so that's what we're delegating it to. But does that mean it's so complicated because when you do that and you start changing the use of that money, of the connection fee money, that it's getting complicated because we in the past we haven't said what portion goes for this, what portion goes for that, and so
Right.
you can't.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think I don't know the exact verbiage that should be in something like this, but I would be leery. I would rather do this. Here's my concern is that if we are in right now and going through basically looking at a connection fee for a private citizen hooking up to an existing pipe on 3A, and we're basically discussing that and making a judgment on what that cost is going to be, they're going to come right back to us and say, well, wait a second, you're going to do it for them, you should do it for us. So I would think they're going to want us to peel apart the onion that is our connection fee and say, well, okay, so what about this? Can we take that as a credit? What about that? Can we take that as a credit? I would much rather have us say, we pick a number that for a home, not a complex the size of Stop and Shop, but as a residential component, that they're per bedroom, we'll give him a credit of X if they wish to connect to the town's sewer pipe. And set parameters so it only is effective in this one condition rather than sort of nationwide in this respect.
Right. I think up to date, we have not received any plans, any plans that you could actually bid on, but any real estimate of the cost of putting that pipe in, because everything so far has been as if the expenses is for doing all of the site work to connect onto the pipe because of asphalt replacement and all this other stuff, and not just the pipe going down the highway. Because I drive it, and first of all, they should call DigSafe. They should have them mark all of the utilities, and they should go ahead and have an engineer say, this is where we could put it, this is how it would go in, and then this is how much it's going to cost. All that is missing, and yet he's trying to say that it's going to cost $1 million or this or that, when we don't have a number to look at. So we can't even say we'll dedicate in the future this much money towards that pipe, which we're going to own. How do we cover? What do we do if someone along there wants to get on? In terms of how does that work in terms of connecting onto that pipe?
I think we have we put together some sort of just as we have for maybe downtown or other areas, we put together some sort of a connection fee policy that is just for the pipe between along 3A between Sawyer Street and Tapella Road on one side of it.
And that's not the type of thing we should do.
Well, I don't know. I'm sort of talking a lot. I don't know how we do it. To be honest, I'm just sort of thinking if that's even legal, if we could do something like that.
Right. And does he have the right to be the person who determines who's going to connect on? Because I'm just worried about the legal, sort of the aspects of this. So it's, so it really has to be, if he puts the pipe in, it has to be to our spec, and it has to be owned by the town when he's done, period. In terms of being able to keep control of it. So we're making the decisions who else could tie in. It isn't being oversized so that everybody on that route or anybody doing something else can necessarily have the capacity of that pipe. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's a lot to talk about something.
I was under the impression that our current connection agreement is specific enough so that what he has to do is submit his plans in detail, and they specifically must meet our tech specs, if you will. Is that correct, Dan?
Yeah, basically he has to meet all the specs, all the guidelines, and we do a physical review of the plans.
He hasn't done any of that. So I don't know how he would even have well, maybe he's got a guess at what he thinks it's going to be. And it would appear that he has my experience tells me is he's put up a pretty big number.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't understand how, I mean, he generated a number with a contractor for, I think it was more of a guesstimate than anything else, because there was no plans, no utility conflicts, nothing to resolve, no paving, no location. I mean, you can just throw a number at the wall, you know, for something like that. You really need a set of plans, a design plans to really define the cost.
So absent a new estimated number by us that might somehow give credit for non-sewer water consumption, I'm frankly at almost the end of my rope as to how much more we can or should be doing at this time, given the lack of a response from the potential applicant.
And if I could just jump in, the most recent revision of the connection agreement does anticipate Wayne's point. It does say if the line will be the town's. If someone in the future wishes to connect, then arrangements will be discussed about figuring out what amount might should be paid over to the developer as a compensation against the cost. So it anticipates, but it is not at all specific. It says it will be dealt with in the future, but it says it will be dealt with in the future.
How many properties, maybe Dan, you can tell me, how many properties along 3A could potentially hook up given the wetlands and things of that nature?
Yeah, there's really nothing under a dozen. It's more probably like 5 and 6 practically.
Very
Okay.
few, but they would be relatively small users, I would think.
They would be. And some of the services would be very long, so it's kind of doubtful that the connection would actually be made. There is some available land out there.
Now, almost all this land is residential. So, except for just 2 little parcels coming on King Street.
Peter, right?
Yeah.
The auto.
So things like Peter Capozzoli's thing, that's a non-conforming business use that you got a variance to put that there. But everything else is residential. So the dog, the veterinarian and Smith Appliance, where that was there, is the only other business. So in fact, you're not going to get, you're going to have like 8 or 10 houses or so. I mean, that's almost the most you're going to get out of it, and which really hurts in terms of anything. The only real option would be if the pipe was extended from Stop and Shop further down and picked up something like Sunrise Assisted Living or something that could conceivably have a problem in the future.
Yeah, no.
That's not part of our
No, that's right. But
capability at this point.
right, have capacity, or this pipe isn't even designed for it.
The mechanism that lets us even be here talking about this is the one that says they will have and have committed to have affordable housing. That allows us to come in under our bylaws and be having this discussion at all. If we're talking about extending the sewer beyond this particular property, then we're talking about having to go to town meeting to get approval of a sewer district that would encompass areas that are not part of this single owned property.
Right.
So let's not get confused on that point.
I still question whether or not we could let someone in between the Stop and Shop and Pond Street area.
Once the pipe is there,
Okay, yes,
and sewage is flowing through it. The laws of the Commonwealth says if somebody applies to hook into that sewer that goes by their property, and we have the capacity to treat their effluent, we must grant their access,
okay,
but only if it flows past their property. So, I mean, we've had a number of those happen after Little Harbor Atlantic Avenue for people who owned property that before the construction of the sewer was not a suitable building lot because of perk issues. Lucky them.
Yeah, really.
But they all paid a connection privilege fee consistent with the escalated value of the betterments that everybody else paid when the system was constructed in the first place.
Okay, anything else we want to, offer this topic?
Just one thing from me, Bill. Dan had indicated and you had affirmed that we ought to be helpful to get the legal background. And I've refreshed my recollection on some of the case on it, and I will put together a 1 or 2 page memo just so that you can understand what the legal situation here. And the short of it is you're going in absolutely the right direction. But I thought I'll put something together quick just so you have it to understand the legal here.
Good.
Yeah, very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we could do regional now, or do we want to go to the applicant on Lantern Lane just to, or Lambert's Lane rather? Actually, can we move around a little bit?
Well,
At this point, you could.
Yeah, the time's expired. The clock doesn't make any difference. Let's keep it going.
exactly.
All right.
Yes, that's correct.
So why don't we do that? Lisa, do you want to introduce John and then we can get into that?
Okay, so John, I'm going to unmute you. John Ormond is interested in purchasing the property that is on 26 West Lane. And that's the one that also has a small area of frontage on Hull Street. So Lambert Lane is not in the sewer district, but Hull Street is. And so his interest in this is only if he can be guaranteed that he can be hooked up to sewer, after putting everything in that's required. So John, do you want to take it from here? You are now unmuted.
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for taking this meeting and thank you for reviewing this process. So, yeah, it's essentially, there's no sewer connection on Lambert's Lane. So the owners of this property said they had a sewer connection approved back on Hull Street. So when I did further investigation, I noticed there was, it seemed like it was halfway approved, but not all the way. So my goal at this phase is just to simply determine and find out if I do meet all the requirements that you will allow a sewer connection to Hull Street for these 2 lots. And if there's any large code or violation that would stop this from happening. I didn't see any. I just came off of a project where I run 2,500 feet of sewer line on a subdivision in central Massachusetts. So I have experience with this process. So I didn't see any issues. I think we can meet the gravity requirements. I drew the line quickly. It's curved a little bit. We'll probably make it a little bit straighter. But overall, I think it's feasible. It's a feasible approach. We're not going to bring the houses down. We're going to try to work with the elevations that are there. But we're not going to do any blasting or anything. If anything, we're going to raise the houses up a little bit so that we get a better pitch towards the sewer. We'll probably bring in some fill to fill up the back part of that yard and that elevation. But the goal will be to get a nice sewer run, a nice straight sewer run out onto Hull Street. So that's all I have right now. I mean, my goal at this phase is just to kind of get some kind of informal approval that the sewer commission would allow this to occur based on, the frontage we have on Hull Street here in 26 and other requirements. There's some wetlands there. We're trying to stay 100 feet back from the wetlands. We'll establish an easement, and we'll follow all the standard process for setting this up. So I just want to put that out there.
I guess I thank you. I guess the question I have first, if I can, is just, I don't remember ever giving a half approval on anything.
We don't do that.
Well, there was something from the Board of Health that said that they're on septic, and that they would be allowed to move and connect to the sewer. So the Board of Health approved it. So that part of it is, I guess, is done, but the sewer connection.
You know, if that was the case, then you'd be talking to the Board of Health rather than us. So I'm not being a hard ass. It's just, I haven't heard that one before.
Now,
John, that
we
was
don't have
the,
half approvals, and you know, the Board of Health can say what they want to say, but they're not the ones who approve sewer connections. Dan, have you had a chance to look at the rough drawing that Lisa sent out?
I did, and I did send Lisa back some comments. Obviously, it is very rough. You know, but I mean, in concept, it could probably work one way or the other. There is a small pump station, if needed, shown on the plan, so it's kind of like just covering all bases. Depending on which way they go, there'll be different applications. And obviously, the design has to be carried in through Hull Street, and an application to Hull as well has to be filed to get approval to connect to that sewer.
That goes into the gravity pipe that goes down Hull Street.
It is gravity with a little wedge meets Hull Street. So they would have to traverse over a couple of utilities. I think there's a water, some gas pipe, maybe a drain that they'd have to get by in order to get to the sewer. But like I said, they'd still need permission from Hull to connect to the sewer if they got approval from you. The board as well.
And did they need permission from Hingham to get able to, because that's in,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I misspoke. Hingham.
and it's because the pipe is serving both Hingham and Cohasset.
I apologize. Yeah, they really don't even need permission from Hull. It's just Hingham's Water Sewer Commission.
You said we don't need permission from Hull?
You really don't. I'm assuming Hingham is operating under their flow limit, and we're certainly operating under our flow limit relative to the IMAs.
Okay.
You have to notify them of a new connection or
Right.
extension, but there's no approval process.
It's just a notification process as far as Hull is concerned.
Correct.
Hingham is,
So, in order to connect to Hingham's pipe, though, you would need approval with
yes, okay.
an application and permit.
I was thinking about that this morning and going a step further. What rates would we ask them to pay? Would they be part of our single current rate? Or is it time for us to discuss, given the significant difference in cost in wastewater that goes to Hull as opposed to our treatment plant, to have any new connection, which this would be, billed at our actual cost of sending it on to Hull, at least so far under the intermunicipal agreement. And if we did that, we might want to think further about the subsidy that we have been asking, in essence, our other sewer users in Cohasset to compensate for the actual increase in cost for those 50 some odd homes that go to Hull at a 50% increase over what we have been charging them in the past. Just to inject another little bit of confusion into the discussion.
Well, that's appreciated. Thank you.
I knew you would.
I would like,
It's a separate issue, but I think the potential is there. Here is 26 Lambert Lane, or whatever the address is, coming in. We're talking about the potential of them hooking up to our sewer. And I think it should be clear, at least in my mind right now, is that anybody new certainly is going to have to pay the real cost of processing their wastewater once it gets into the system, rather than just to assume, well, we'll subsidize this Johnny come lately, excuse me, John, by charging our other customers what we do so that everybody pays the same. I like it being the same, but at some point we need to give that some extra thought. Doesn't have to be in association with this particular one, but if we ever got to the point of approving it, I would certainly impose a different water use rate. And by the way, if we change that, that has to get town meeting approval.
John, I think that this really is involving two houses, so there's going to be two.
Yeah, I know.
Two large, two permit, so that
I know. It's not a lot of money. I'm talking principal.
Right.
With an LE.
Yeah.
Let's get through the grind of thumb program first, and then we can
Yeah.
get that
My,
done.
my only comment would be if you do start looking at different rates, it would be better to do it as applicable. In other words, those people who are still sending their flow to Hull, for which you are getting charged, put them all on the same basis as far as a rate. Just so you have basically a good cost recovery system that's reflective of what you have out there, instead of doing it on an individual base. So and from that perspective too, if you ever did a sewer extension up there to bring those into your system, there would be also an added incentive for those people to tie into the sewer for Cohasset if they realize those higher rates as well.
Well, on the subject, I don't know if you want to entertain this concept, but I do have another business where I'm introducing in the United States a water sewage treatment plant that uses it's 1/10 the density and uses about 1/50 amount of electricity for sewage processing. And I'm having it approved right now in the state of Massachusetts. This is something maybe down the road I can introduce to you. So from a long-term cost standpoint, you could maybe look at this technology to have maybe implement it into your structures to help lower costs. So as part of me coming in, I could help bring some technology into your town sewage treatment and this area basically. If there's interest, I mean, I want to focus on this right now, but there's methods out there to help lower long-term costs for sewage treatment right now. There's some new technologies that are out there that I'm working on getting approved in the state of Massachusetts.
You should talk to Mr. Stasko at the Stop and Shop.
Yeah. Stasco, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well, I have to get it approved in the state first.
yeah,
And then,
it might happen early more, but I'd be interested in seeing it.
yeah, it's pretty interesting actually. It's the total cost of ownership is about 1/5 of what's going on in the United States right now, and the key is that it uses less power to process waste, and then the space, it's 1/5 the amount of space that you need. So it's pretty interesting actually. If you're running out of space, like if you have 3 or 4 acres right now and you're out of space, you can kind of consolidate and put this in, and you expand your capacity by 500% over the next 10 years. It's pretty interesting.
And what's
uses
it called?
Well,
The
name of the system, I don't want to say what it is yet because I want to be the one to introduce it to the United States. But basically, it uses a biological process with some sensor technology to kind of decompose the material on its own using kind of solar panels. There's a whole bunch of things involved in it, but I can send along more information about it later. Basically the company's out of England. But I mean, the purpose of this meeting anyway is to go over this. I was wondering, so I guess to answer this question, is it possible to bring the sewer line over? I mean, it sounds like it's feasible, but it's all, I have to get approval from Hingham and Cohasset in order to get this connection approved.
That's correct.
Okay, so how long does that normally take? I'm just trying to get a time frame from that. Is that like a 3 or 4 month process, do you think, or
Quicker.
quicker, about a month? Okay.
Take 2 meetings.
And then, so to formally approve it, you would need to see the full engineering plans, or can you hypothetically approve it and give a conditional approval based on me meeting all of the requirements?
Well, I personally would like to see something more than what you've sent.
Okay,
You know, and, you know, maybe with some dimensions, and as Wayne has said, you know, does it interfere with anything that's in the street, and how are you connecting, that kind of stuff. I would, as long as, whatever the conditions are set by us, you know, I'd be open to that. I want to hear what Wayne and John have to say about that, though.
And I think you could go to Hingham right now and see about, you know, what their current, you know, the fact that this is what you want to do, will they give you permission? Get that permission. So when you come back to us, you already have it, and then it's a done deal.
Mhm.
Hingham might actually want your approval first before considering it, but you can certainly go and talk to them.
so I have to get an engineering plans and a plot plan certified with the easements drawn up, and then I could have, and then bring that to Hingham and then bring it back to you. So do I have Cohasset approve it first, or Hingham approve it first?
Well, you can't get rid of it if Hingham doesn't approve it.
Mhm.
So that would be step number one, to get Hingham's agreement that they will take your flow. And if
Okay.
you construct the system for those 2 lots in accordance with all our regulations, the probability is very good that we would say yes.
Oh, okay, all right, good. Yeah, that's what I was looking to hear. All right.
I'm sure Hingham will want a plan anyway, showing the connection, so you would need to have to generate something for them.
Okay, so I'd have to do more detailed plans. Okay, great. All right, yeah, so I guess that answers my question. So yeah, is there any, I just had 2 other questions for the plans. Is there any way to get the elevation over on Hull Street, or where the sewer actually is? Is it 5 foot below grade, or is it 10 foot below? Do you have that in a town engineering plan somewhere?
Again, that's a Hingham sewer.
Oh, it is.
They would have,
Hey.
they would have the plans and the inverts, but from the perspective of an engineering design plan, it's always good to verify that. So in theory, your engineer should be shooting those inverts to make sure.
Yeah. Are there any manholes near this, Dan?
Sure. Upstream and downstream.
Yeah. So going into a manhole and stuff, you're going to be able to find out too.
Oh,
Yeah, he may not be able to connect to a manhole per se, but he can certainly get the inverts by shooting the 2 manholes, one up, one up.
Right.
yeah, okay. All right, and then what are the rules? I saw, I read kind of Dan's like review of the sewer connections we had. You mentioned some things about wetlands. What are the requirements for wetlands? Is 100-foot distance enough?
You'd have to talk to.
Okay. All right, I thought that was like 50 foot was the rule, but all right, that's fine.
I think it's 100.
It is 100? Okay.
100-foot buffer. It is probably a 50-foot no disturb.
Okay. All right, great.
With them.
All right, yeah, I think we'll be within 100 feet. And then if we did bring that pipe over, I guess this is my last question. If we brought the pipe over, I'm only 20 feet from Lambert's Lane. Based on your previous discussions, would the town be interested in maybe using this pipe to connect Lambert's Lane to the sewer? And if so, would you be willing to pay for a wider pipe to hold more volume? Or help trip in for that? Because Lambert's Lane does not have a sewer line.
That would be another town meeting thing, wouldn't it? I mean, we'd be increasing the district.
Right.
So,
Keep it simple, John.
Okay, all right.
yeah.
All right, I'll just leave it as it is. All right. All right, great. I don't have any other questions. I thank you for meeting. And does anybody have any questions for me?
I don't.
All right, Bill, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yep.
Thanks, John.
All right, thanks. I'm going to log off. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, bye.
So we have Bob on as an attendee. Bob, if you could let us know in the Q&A what your last name, address, and your reason for joining the meeting would be. And then next up, I think we're going to be talking about regional.
Yes. Has he responded to you at all,
He has
Lisa?
not, no. No response yet, Bill.
Interesting.
Well, should we continue?
Well, the piece on the regional sewer discussion. I got a call yesterday from Katie Duggan and Tim Davis, who are part of the master plan implementation committee. They were having a meeting last night and they wanted to discuss, what our position is and where we are with the whole regional sewer process. I gave them basically a little bit more than a cursory review of what our position is, and John certainly voiced your views on how it would help, how it is actually going to assist the town of Cohasset in the future, and the costs and what benefits of the town are there really. So they were briefed on all that. They do see it as a priority in the town's cleaning up the harbor. They were focused on the nitrogen levels that are in the harbor, and I said that in my limited engineering experience on this board, I said, you also have to figure out all the groundwater and all the runoff from lawns and everything else to calculate the nitrogen. And I said, so don't just look at us, because it's probably a very, very, very small portion of what falls into the harbor. They would like to come before the board at our next meeting and discuss things. They mentioned more than 3 or 4 times that they want to assist the board as we move through a decision on this. And then that was basically the call. They more wanted an update to present to their group, and that's where we are. They're going to come back to us. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, she'll be, she mentioned about joining the next meeting. We'll invite them to the meeting on the 28th.
Yep.
What would they like to see happen?
I don't know if they know yet, to be honest. We did talk about potentially having a sewer outfall pipe, potentially. And Katie came back and said, well, you can't do that. And I said, well, no, you can't do it within a certain distance to the landmass. You have to go further out. I actually voiced my displeasure with Hull and their inability to negotiate their rates with us on any kind of a regional piece. I don't know what, other than they see it as one of the major sort of foundation pieces of an overall master plan for the town. Not only to develop to a certain extent some pieces and some parcels, but also just to sewer and better the harbor and that kind of thing. So that's what I see that they want. And I will add one thing I forgot. They did ask about the proceedings with Chief Justice Cushing Highway and that project. I told them, quite frankly, I'm not going to get into too much because we're in the midst of negotiations. I did say that they are the applicant in the early stages is still looking to put a pipe down 3 acres Capella Road, and we're in discussions right now as he's trying to look at ways to mitigate the cost of that, and that's where I left it. So
I have a couple of comments, and because the initial implementation recommendations, the top 5 priorities of the town's a master plan is one, the number one is affordable house ADA compliance. And it says basically Cohasset seeks opportunities to expand the diversity of its housing stocks with a focus on low income families and downsizing seniors. At least 20 additional units will need to be added by 2021 to maintain 40B safe harbor. And obviously we know where the 25 units are going to come for the 20 units, even though only 5 are actually going to be affordable. The next part is that the extension of sewer service to North Situate, this is one of the 5 top priorities, offers environmental and economic benefit to the town. Cohasset's wastewater treatment facility is currently limited to 450,000 gallons and cannot support all future flows from high priorities identified in phase 1 of the regional wastewater management plan. And then it goes on to say, barriers to success is an urgency is high, the dollars are high, the dependencies are high, and the public agreement is high. And that's what their belief is for people wanting to reduce environmental impact on North Situate wastewater management and ocean outfall. So I believe that the committee is interested in both the CJC property, or what I said, and very much so for whatever they think they can, how that's going to help Cohasset for regional sewer. So I think that it certainly involves us to talk to them.
Yeah.
I can be somewhat flippant, not that I ever am. They want to play patty cake, but they don't know exactly how they will ever finish the game of patty cakes being nice to our neighbors, because there ain't no way to do it without putting a big pipe through Cohasset. Is that a fair, flippant description?
Well, it certainly is for me.
Yeah, it could be. It's certainly one of the ways that you can do it. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just don't see how, with this regional approach, it can ever physically happen without a bigger pipe coming through Cohasset to transport raw sewage from Situate to Hull, because A, we're not going to have the capacity to treat it, and B, our distribution system as it currently exists can't even do what they proposed in the first place, which, by the way, only sewers half of the Situate Gulf. So, I mean, that's a non-starter on the face of it.
Right.
It doesn't achieve anybody's objectives. It only, I guess, achieves their objective of building a new big 40B project and sending it to Cohasset for treatment.
Yep.
It's just doesn't work.
Unless we could get some credit for that.
You're right. Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, I understand, John. I absolutely understand what you're saying. And I think that as I did mention to them, you know, my concern on all this is that we're going to become basically the middle of an Oreo cookie, and you know, it may not happen in 1 year, may not happen in 5 years, but at a certain period of time, if it hasn't already occurred, it could very well. It very well could. I could very well see that the town of Situate and the town of Hull say, "Oh, well, what do we need Cohasset for? All they are is just a pipe. They're the Mass Pike of us getting to New York. So we're going to set our parameters. We're going to renegotiate the deal. We're going to do it." And I said, there has to be some way of perpetually guaranteeing that we have equal or higher rights than the people to our left and to our right, depending on whether we're facing the ocean or not. And I think that I agree that the pipe, I mean, there could be another solution. There could be a solution of putting a separate treatment plant somewhere in, dare I say, North Situate, and have that go out off of Minot, and then we just do up to, you know, Gannett, and then go from Gannett down border, which we could do. And
Yeah.
we screw Hull. We don't need Hull. So there are other alternatives, and I think that when the COVID gods leave and we're able to like caucus again, that is something I would like to see considered, because I think it would be far less expensive to the collective group, whether that's 2 towns or 3, it would certainly be less disruptive to the town of Cohasset. And it could actually be more feasible for the town of Situate, because they then could go and do other areas, go down Hatherley all the way down to the Toll Brothers and do other areas. They don't even need us.
Right. I agree. It's called the Situate solution.
Well, the next step for 2021 by the committee is to develop a detailed point of view on the land use and economic development impact of the high priority sewer areas in Cohasset, which are C1A, C1B, C1E, C13, and C6. So somebody has a plan to get sewer in these areas to help economic development and increase.
Right, but it's not going to be our economic development.
I noticed things are really growing in downtown Cohasset that's had a sewer now for 40 years.
Mhm.
Really taking off.
Well,
That's a joke.
there are barriers against it that don't seem to be able to be moved, and that's sad. So,
I know.
okay. Anyway, I think we talk to them, see what comes out. I think if we agree at that point, it would probably be in our best interest to have another meeting. I don't necessarily think with Hull, but certainly with Situate, and see whether or not they would want to talk about having a plant on their property. I mean, why not? If they're going to pay, if they're going to pay to have a line, a large volume pipe, go from the Border Street Bridge all the way to Hull, that's got to be some serious money, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
And the three of us are going to have to move into some stone compound with barbed wire fences all around us, because the town will go out and kill us if they see us driving around town after the fact. But why wouldn't Situate take on, the cost and angst of this in concert with us as a regional program, rather than having us take on the burden and they take all the benefit?
I think there's room for discussion along those lines, Bill, and I appreciate your thinking. But
I noticed that Bob had his hand up, but Bob, just to let you know, it's protocol for the town of Cohasset not to allow the attendees to talk, to eliminate any audio bombing or video bombing. So if you could please just let us know what your question is by asking in the Q&A, would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, his address.
And your address, please. He has his hand up again, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, no, I mean, if we get a policy on that, I don't want to get bombed here, but I mean, he can type out a question and ask us. Is there any way, now, can you ask him a question on this Q&A thing?
Unfortunately, I can't. I have to answer a question.
Well, he's got to be hearing us.
why can't we communicate with people? Meaning,
I think they have to be publicly invited. They have to be on the Zoom invite, so we don't get people coming in and showing, pictures of themselves in strange places and things of that nature. So, because there have been these Zoom bombs when this first started, where people just get on somehow and then they just, throw all sorts of junk at everyone.
okay. So are we done with our regional sewer discussion?
Yes, we are. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, before we do, Wayne, would you be able to send me what you were reading from? I'd be interested in reading.
I'm sorry.
What you were reading, top 5, it was the top 5 priorities.
Yeah, that's, this
Send
is
that
what
to-
was sent. I think everybody might have received it, but it is the,
That's in the packet you got, Lisa, from Katie Duggan.
yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Master plan, MPIC goals. So
Okay,
master plan implementing committee, I assume, something like, yeah.
Yep.
Master
Yep.
plan implementation committee,
The one that Dan has up.
right? And then there was a
okay.
fiscal 2021 initial recommendations, and it's a pre-read packet for the planning board and Cohasset Select Board. So Katie sent it to us to be able to review.
Yes, I did get that, and I did read it briefly. I guess it looked different than my reading it, hearing it from somebody else.
So, you know, I took the priority things there, and I think the first,
Yes.
I mean, I've just read word for word from it. Because I thought it's what's circulating out there, and I don't want to have misconceptions about what the, you know, what the goals are, what needs to be thought of.
Yep. So knowing that, I want to just knowing the timing here. Do we have any more to talk about on the regional? Are we good on that?
I don't
Okay.
really know where it stands. Maybe Brian or Chris may know when they're having another meeting, when they're going to do something, because I have no information. Chris or Brian, do you want to comment?
Hey, Wayne. So right now, you know, based on our last meeting, we have no further scheduled meetings.
This
Okay.
is Chris. The next meeting we're going to be having internally, we talked about was trying to get a group together. We're waiting for the selectmen's goals and objectives session next week to determine how that's going to be pulled together. So the next, you know, bigger conversation would be internally. Again, we said with the sewer commission and with planning board and master plan implementation. There's still conversation to be had about what that would look like. And I said we would circle back with all of you before that meeting.
Right. Well, we've got some new select people, so they may not have any information that's come up in the past. So that, you know, that's something that they should be brought up to some speed with, so that they can participate as well.
Yes, thank you. We are trying to get them up to speed, and I know that they have some time. Corey, one new select member. We'll be spending some time with Brian, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks to get up to speed on public works stuff in general, but also obviously water and sewer issues like this.
Right. Okay. Bill, next.
Well said, yeah. So grinder pumps. Now, Rod, do you want to tell us the latest on that?
I had drafted a letter at our last meeting, asked that I draft a letter that would be sent to the homeowners to announce what's happening, and I sent that draft around last week. I think Bill commented on it favorably, I want to point out, and I think the process is by the town meeting vote of 2011. The select board is authorized in consultation with the sewer commission to invoke the return of both the easement, releasing the easement and releasing the ownership of the grinder pumps to the individual homeowners in this area. And so my letter describes that, and my thought process was, let's just make it clear that we're only doing what we had told them we were doing back in 2010, and give them a copy of that that 2010 letter and say, we're doing what we told you we were doing. The select board has voted, and obviously we need to get the select board, the select board needs to approve this, and then we pick a date certain that the transfer will happen, that the town will release its ownership of the easement and the grinder pumps, and the $125 a quarter fee will be terminated. So it's, you've got the draft, and I think it needs to be coordinated, obviously, with the select board.
Rod, does it take another action by the select board, or did the one in 2011, is that all we need?
2011 was the town meeting authorization of the select board to take this action.
Okay,
So it is, the select board must act in consultation with the sewer commission.
thank you.
What is the next step? I mean, if we approve, I mean, I thought I got back to you saying the letter looked fine to me. I mean, what's our next step? I mean, if we approve, does the board approve it, and then we say, we take it to the town?
Take it to the talk to Chris, I think, is the short answer. But yes, we propose this to the select board, asking that they affirmatively act to release the easement, release the ownership as of a date certain.
I mean, so we could basically set September 1 in the ground and say, by then we want to release it.
Yes. Well, we consult with the select board, so we propose that to the select board.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, I see you on. Would you be the one we send this application to, or do we go before the select board, or what?
Well, it's going to need to be calendared. So if you just send it over, we do agenda setting sessions. I usually meet with the chairman and the chair and the vice chair, and then these are discussed sometimes at meetings, when things are coming. So the board's going to adopt hopefully the rest of its proposed meeting schedule for the rest of the year tonight. That said, there's already 2 scheduled meetings for August. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but I know Lisa can get them from Tracy. So if you're ready to go, you can just send something over, and I'll chat with Diane, and you're free to chat with Diane. Just let her know what's coming, and then the board can then schedule it for sometime in August, if that's works on a timing sense.
John and Wayne, are you good with this?
I have 2 questions. One, that we have an absolute confidence in the list of people who have town-owned grinder pumps. Number 2, that the Gazins and the Gazouts in the account that was collecting the $125 quarterly fee be certified is probably too strong a word, agreed to by our town finance director, that we have received enough money to pay and have been paying all the bills associated with town-owned grinder pumps, replacement thereof, maintenance thereof, et cetera, et cetera. I've asked for this a couple of times, and I understand everyone's very busy, but I haven't heard an answer to that second question about the finances. In other words, we stopped collecting it, and we've collected just the right amount to balance our books.
And I'm in agreement.
Yeah. That's an excellent point, actually.
And then we're ready to go.
So is that something you could prod Dawn on?
Or Lisa, that sounds like a good set of marching orders for Lisa to get back to us with the answers to those 2 questions. She says, yes, I can do that.
I'll try.
Well, a list of grinder pumps, the grinder pump list should theoretically be in the records of the sewer commission. And then the rest is just math, so it should be fairly easy to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will draft a transmittal memo to send to Chris and the person in his office who actually runs things, and just to outline what's happening here and attach the documents. So there'll be sort of talking points.
And also, we were talking about having a little instruction sheet on how to use your
Yes.
now privately owned grinder pump.
Yep.
Hopefully that'll be ready at the end of the week. I'm still waiting on some info from Mahoney.
Okay, a separate sheet.
Yeah. And Dan, way back when, I can't even think of his name, Ed would come over to, make personal visits. He had a laminated card from E1. And if we could get, however many grinder pumps we have, say 100 and something, if we could get those or buy them from him and include that in the package, they could, put it up on a wall somewhere.
Okay, I'll ask him about that.
Yeah, I remember him showing it to us, and then, of course, I think we asked him for it, and it never came. It never happened. But
I'm not sure if it would. It's specifically applicable to Cohasset, and that'd be the only thing. If we can tailor it or modify it a little bit, just so they have all the information on one piece, on one card. I
Yeah,
think that's the ideal.
yeah, but I also think though it sort of was like a speak for myself, like an idiot guide on how to turn the thing on, and if it's making noise, you turn the button off, that kind of thing. So, nothing to like open it up and stick your finger in there and see if it's still the power or not.
The way I've set up so far, it's basically first page is just general information, contacts. The back would be what you do.
All right. Well, see if he's got some of them, because I think we'll be better served with more information than less.
Sure.
good.
All right. Is there any other business that we would like to discuss?
Who's going to pay for the fireworks when we finally get through this travail?
Well, I don't know if we'll be allowed to have them at that point.
Oh, by the way, is the town manager still on, Chris? How are we doing on collecting tax and sewer and water revenues? Do you have any feel for that?
I don't have the most recent water bill data, John, but as we're closing out FY20, the town collected roughly 99+% of its real estate taxes, and a higher percentage of motor vehicle than we did the prior year, excise tax. I'd have to ask about what, I think the most recent bills were just coming in June. I haven't gotten an update on that, but I will check. But the real estate taxes were excellent, so.
So
That's
it
pretty good.
doesn't look like we're going to have a significant shortfall, at least at this point.
No, again, one of the things that I've commented on is that governments tend to be lagging indicators on these things, it really depends on what happens over the next 36 months with the economy and everything else, and the state, about how will it affect us into FY21 and obviously beyond that in FY22. So, but so far, we're okay. We're obviously closely monitoring all this.
Yeah, thank you.
I think our revenue is going to be up. I think more people are using water while they're staying home and stuff like that. So I think that, in fact, usage may be up.
In most communities, it's
Yeah, the billings will be up. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about people paying because they don't have a job.
I think they're getting more money from the government than they had a job.
Well, I don't know, maybe.
I haven't seen anything.
By the way, to Wayne's point, the last 3 months, the water department's reported higher usage than last year. So And that was really pre-irrigation. So
Yep.
the water usage has been up.
Good.
Most communities have seen a 20% increase,
How much, Dan?
20%.
Wow. Well, to John's point, if we get 20% more revenue than we've calculated, that'd be nice, you know?
We can figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see that, yeah. We know where to go. All right.
Maybe we'll reduce our rates.
No.
Well, I think as Chris said, there's a lot more sprinklers out there that don't go through the meter for sewer. So water department's going to have a bonanza, not us.
Yeah. That's probably more the case.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Make a
Brian
motion.
or Chris, do you want to say anything? Do you have anything to throw at us?
I have nothing. I don't know about Brian.
No, nothing here. Thanks,
Okay.
brother.
All right. Can I have a, yeah, and I'll second. All in favor?
All right.
Bye.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Good session.
See you in 2
Thank
weeks.
you.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.
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 Bye.